How's it going today, everybody? Mick back here for a wrestling video. More specifically, we're going to talk the state of pro wrestling in 2025 for both major wrestling organizations in the United States, both of which are watched tremendously abroad in many, many countries. So, of course, I'm talking about WWE and AEW, All Elite Wrestling. So, first off, we're going to talk a little bit about WWE. They've been around a very long time. They were first established in the 1970s, I believe, or even further back than that. But I know for sure they were around in the 70s and they were called WWF. In the 1980s, Vince McMahon Jr. bought them. I believe he's Jr. And he changed them over to WWF. That's when I became a fan. I attended my very first show back in 1984 and have stayed a fan ever since to present day and beyond. You know what I mean? I'll always be a fan. So WWE has been in this country forever running shows. They're the number one organization. They always will be. So I did take down some notes just so I made sure not to leave anybody out, and I wanted to have all this good factual information for you guys in this video. So of course I know who most of the champions are in WWE because I watch regularly, but a couple of them I still had to, refresh myself with. The champions, as far as the WWE side goes, CM Punk from Chicago, one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. He actually won the belt back on Saturday night's main event. So CM Punk is the World Heavyweight Champion now. Cody Rhodes is the WWE Undisputed Champion. Dominic Mysterio is the WWE Intercontinental Champion. Ilya Dragunov, and I'm sorry if I pronounced the first name wrong. I'm pretty sure I got it right though. He's the WWE United States Champion. The World Heavyweight Tag Team Champions are AJ Styles and Dragon Lee. The WWE Tag Team Champions are the Wyatt Six, which are Dexter Lumis, and I forget the other guy's name. I always do. I know for sure one of them is Lumis, so forgive me on that. Someone can correct me and let me know who the other one is in the comments if you'd like to. So onto the women's side there, we have Stephanie Vaquer as the Women's World Heavyweight Champion. We also have Jade Cargill, who came from AEW. She's now the WWE Women's Champion. Becky Lynch is the Women's Intercontinental Champion. Julia is the Women's United States Champion. And Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair, supposedly the Women's Tag Champions, but actually I've not seen much of them defend those belts personally. Maybe they have, I haven't personally seen the matches, I guess. So now that we've talked a little WWE and I've let you guys know all the champions, for people that aren't, keeping up or anything like that, let's talk some AEW now. AEW is a company started in 2018. The owner is Tony Khan, and he's actually from our great state of Illinois. So that's pretty cool in my opinion. One of the very first signings they had and one of the very first major wrestlers that they had come over to their side from WWE was Chris Jericho. So that was a pretty cool thing from the start. They are based in Jacksonville, Florida, but they run shows all over the United States. So as far as their champions go, we have Hangman Adam Page as the AEW World Heavyweight Champion. We also have Kazuchika Okada as the International Champion. The TNT Champion is Kyle Fletcher. The Tag Team Champions are Brody King and Bandito. Other than that, we have the Ops holding the AEW Trios Championships. The Women's Champion in AEW is Chris Statlander, who I believe is an AEW original. She's been there since the very beginning of their company. Other than that, we have Mercedes Moné, also known as Sasha Banks in WWE. But Mercedes Moné is the TBS champion, or the TV champion as I like to call it. They also have women's tag team titles, which are yet to be crowned for the very first time. So we can look forward to that, I suppose. So now I'll just talk about how you're able to watch both wrestling shows in both companies if you want to. either streaming or on basic cable or whatever. So we'll start first with WWE. So WWE Raw for, God, I don't know, over 30 years has been on basic cable TV between one channel or the other, whether it's been USA or Spike TV. It may even had a short run on a channel that is no longer around called, well, Spike isn't around anymore either, but there's another one called TNN. And I think they may have been on TNN for a while, but I don't remember correctly. And if it was, it would have been like in the 2004 or 2005 era or something like that. I don't know. But be that as it may, you can no longer watch Raw on just basic cable TV. You have to subscribe to Netflix if you want to see Monday Night Raw. So there you go. Other than that, SmackDown is still on TV, on basic TV, and they have gone over to USA. So instead of Raw being on USA, you can watch SmackDown on USA Friday nights, 7 p.m. NXT is on the CW. That's on Tuesday nights, I believe, and that starts at 7 o'clock. WWE pay-per-views. They are still on Peacock, as far as I know, because I watched one on there not too long back. And I believe they have a contract with them through like 2026. So like when the contract is up, then I don't know what they're taking off there and what's still going to be on there. But pay-per-views will be on ESPN, the streaming app or whatnot. And I believe they're already on there. So, that's where you can check out the WWE pay-per-views or premium live events, as they like to refer to them as. So now we'll go to the AEW side. AEW Dynamite can be watched every Wednesday night on TBS, and that starts at 7 o'clock. You can also stream it on HBO Max. AEW Collision is also on TNT, and that's on Saturday nights starting at 8 p.m., maybe 7 p.m. Central. Check your local listings, as they say. All Elite Wrestling AEW pay-per-views, you can still buy them the traditional pay-per-view route through whatever, cable or satellite, whatnot you got. They can also be found on HBO Max streaming. So now let's talk a little bit about going to a live event for each brand or each company or whatnot. We'll start off with WWE. So I've read, I believe WrestleNomics has something about this, and I've just also read about it, that since the takeover of WWE from TKO, that ticket prices for live events have somewhat doubled, if not more. So that's not a good thing as far as I'm concerned, personally. I'll tell you that I've read, and these are averages, okay? Average ticket prices for WWE Raw. Average ticket price, $300 through $460, with general admission tickets starting on average from $30 to $50. WWE SmackDown, average ticket price, $78 through $230. And the same kind of thing, general admission tickets starting like around $30 and go to like $42 on average for SmackDown. Pay-per-views, on average, $144, and that is up from the previous year. And that average from the previous year was $118, according to WrestleNomics. So let's go over to the other side now, All Elite Wrestling, if you were looking to attend their live shows. On average, this is on average ticket price here. AEW Dynamite, $100 through $150. General admission, the same type of thing, essentially starting around $30 and going through $50. And then they have premium and ringside seating, which are priced definitely different. Usually starting around $75 for a premium seat, and it could go up to, $300 for ringside, potentially. So average ticket prices for an AEW pay-per-view event, and I can attest to this because I've been to an AEW pay-per-view. I went to All Out, I believe it was, in Chicago. and my ticket was in the 150-ish range, and it was a floor seat. And I actually got really good video footage of some of the matches there. So check it out on my pro wrestling playlist. Back to the average ticket prices for AEW pay-per-view. $75 to $300. So mine was smack dab right in the middle of that, and it was for a floor seat at a good pay-per-view. You pay more for that for premium seating, and of course ringside. Average ticket for non-premium seating is around $131, which is right around what I paid for a nice floor seat at an AEW pay-per-view show. So next I just want to talk about wrestling journalism and wrestling news and what channels I like to watch and who I like to listen to and get my news from and whatnot. So first off, I'm going to start off with Dave Meltzer and the Wrestling Observer. You know, Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez. But more specifically, I'm going to talk about Dave Meltzer here a little bit. You know, Dave Meltzer's been in this business for over 40 years. For the most part, in my opinion, and this is just coming as an opinion from me, as a fan who's been watching wrestling for just about as long as Dave Meltzer's been reporting the news on it. So that means Meltzer was a fan long before I was even, around. But in my opinion, man, this Meltzer, he's been reporting pretty fairly and pretty accurately for the last 40 years. And he does get a lot of flack from people, and I don't understand, Sure, he doesn't nail everything all the time, but nobody does. But I think his record speaks for itself. As I said, for the last 40 plus years of reporting accurately for the most part and fairly for us fans in the wrestling industry. And if not for Dave Meltzer, quite honestly, a lot of channels wouldn't have any content because he's the one that breaks the news. He and maybe a couple other guys. And then you have, all these other channels that just read the news that Meltzer breaks and reports. But then some of them in turn like to complain about him and things like that. And I think sometimes it's very unfair and unwarranted criticism towards Meltzer from both fans, retired wrestlers, and people in the industry. So that's my opinion as somebody who's been watching wrestling for, 40 years, Dave Meltzer started the Wrestling Observer newsletter back in, and I'm going to read it because I took notes here to get it right, back in 1983. And it's still going through present day. And, he's got a good YouTube channel. They have some good guys that work over there that report the news. And as I said, he doesn't get it right all the time. But for 40 years in the industry and reporting on things, I think his record speaks for itself. And that's just my opinion. So that's all I'm going to say about Meltzer. So on to the other guys that I like to listen to. First and foremost, post wrestling, John Pollock, Wei Ting, and Brandon Thurston from WrestleNomics. Those guys always give you good, accurate information. And I love their shows. I like listening to their WWE reviews, their AEW reviews, and anything in between that they happen to do. I think they're one of the more underrated and very, very good wrestling YouTube channels. So that's my personal opinion as a fan who's watched wrestling for 40 years. Literally 40 years. The very first, over that by a couple years. The very first show I ever went to, I was really trying to think about it, is either 1984 or 85. So one of those two. The next person I will mention is, and now we're just going to get into like wrestling commentary and opinion guys and things like that. And the next guy I will talk about is Mr. James E. Cornette, Jim Cornette. lifelong fan of his. I am in what you call the cult of Cornette, proud member, and I love listening to his takes on things, whether it's politics, whether it's going to the store, whatever, whatever it is, you know. I love Jim Cornette, and I think he and Brian Last have a great, uh, I don't know, cohesion of ideas and whatnot. So, um, that being said, I do think Mr. Jim Cornette unfairly criticizes All Elite sometimes. And I'm not going to get into it, but he does. But he also has the experience in wrestling to give criticism. But still, I'm still allowed to have the opinion, in my opinion, that I think he unfairly criticizes some things in All Elite. For instance, like I remember watching something on a most recent WWE pay-per-view. I don't remember what it was, and it was in the main event. Oh, that's what it was. It was the Cena and fuck whoever he wrestled, where they had that spot fest where they were just doing finisher after finisher after finisher, everybody's finisher, you know, didn't matter. They were doing it. And I thought to myself, man, if this was AEW, Cornette would be just having a heyday with this and picking it apart and saying how stupid it was and things like that. You know, and I was like, man, I can't wait to hear him, you know, give his critique on this. And to be honest, I don't even think I remember hearing him even talk about that match. So, I don't know. That's just something. And maybe he did somewhere and I just missed it. So, but be that as it may, I love Jim Cornette. He's a genius. He's one of the greatest minds in professional wrestling history, bar none, period. You can't argue with that. And he's earned the right to criticize. But I also have the right to think that sometimes companies get a little too much criticism, you know? Other than Jim Cornette and Brian Last, the other guys I really like to listen to is Mr. Kevin Nash and Sean Oliver. They have a really good show. I've mentioned Nash before. I think he is always very well spoken. He is well thought out in the things that he says. Likes to have a little puffy poo here and there. I still like to have that smoke with him sometime, man. I'd like to. That's on my bucket list, man. I want to sit down with Big Kev sometime, man, and just have a good smoke with him and just talk about things, man. Don't even have to be wrestling. Talk about football, talk about basketball, talk about whatever, man, you know? He's one of those kind of guys. I love listening to their show. I think the same thing as Cornette and Last, that Kevin Nash and Sean Oliver, they have a very good rapport together. And, you know, I think it's one of the funner and more entertaining shows to watch or listen to, even on YouTube or Spotify or whatever you listen to. So other than that, I mean, I got a couple other guys that I'm going to mention that I like to listen to their shows. And if they happen to see this, I'm sorry if you don't like the shout out or whatever, but you know, I believe in paying it forward to wrestling fans that maybe, you know, you didn't listen to this show or something like that. I'm sure people have listened to all the things that I'm mentioning though, you know. So the next one I'm gonna quickly mention is Stevie Richards' show with James Romero. Stevie, one of my all-time favorite wrestlers in the history of wrestling. I think he's far, far, far underrated. I think he was a world champion, heavyweight champion, you know, caliber wrestler in any company he was in and should have been. That's just my personal opinion. I really enjoy listening to his thoughts on different things, and you know, I like his show. James Romero, a great host for him in his own right, and that's going to lead me to my next guy I like to listen to, James Romero. You know, he's from the UK. He usually has some pretty good, straightforward, straight shooting takes on things, and just one of the guys that I like to listen to. So shout out to him, man. He's got a great channel. He's a great interviewer with all of the different things that he has going on. So just another opinion of mine. I think finally, the last thing I'm going to mention as far as like news channels and opinion and reviewing channels is Chris Van Vliet out of Canada. He is one of the finer reviewers, or I'm sorry, not reviewers, one of the finest interviewers out there. I mean, there's not an interview he's conducted that I really haven't been interested in. So, I mean, that's a testament to his work ethic, I suppose, and to him doing homework on the people that he's interviewing. And that's all I'm going to say about that. So good job, Mr. Van Vliet. And that's about all I have to say about the news, reporting, journalism, and opinion channels and things like that for pro wrestling. And I'm going to end this video, which is a very long video already, I know, for my standards. The state of pro wrestling nearing the end of 2025 and approaching 2026 is fantastic as far as the in-ring action and storytelling in both companies, WWE and AEW, and by extension, you know, WWE, NXT, and, you know, etc. But, and there's a big but here, I do believe, as a fan who has watched wrestling consistently nonstop for 40 years plus of my life, I do believe WWE, with them being bought or taken over by TKO, I do believe they're starting to price out the common fan who doesn't have a lot of money to spend at wrestling shows and on tickets. Because now you're starting to have to buy certain streaming subscriptions just to watch, and ticket prices are doubling, maybe more than that in some cases in some markets. You know, then you hear they're bringing the next WrestleMania to Saudi Arabia, which, I mean, good luck affording that one, you know, if you don't live there. And, you know, Saudi Arabia before somewhere like the UK, that's kind of a head scratcher to me a little bit, but be that as it may, that's their decision to make as a company. But still, good luck affording getting there. That's a different story for a different day. I still love WWE. I still love AEW. And I still think the state of pro wrestling is headed in the right direction in a lot of regards, but in the wrong direction in a lot of regards as well. More specifically, with prices doubling in some cases, ticket prices, and, you know, just kind of pricing out the common man. And that's my opinion. That's all I have to say about it. If you guys like this video, please give it a like. I appreciate that. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. I'm going to try and do more wrestling content like I used to. I do a bit of everything on this channel. I'm an Illinois cannabis reviewer. That's my first passion. Well, my first passion is photography, editing. Then I'm a cannabis reviewer. And I love wrestling lifelong. I love sharing music. I do a bit of everything on this channel. I don't just box myself into doing one thing or another. So, thanks for stopping by. And you guys have a good day. I'll see you next time.